Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Tara Martini, along with host Becky McNatten. We're glad to have you listening, and we live and share stories of mental health.
Tara, when I say the word self-esteem, what do you think of?
Such a powerful word, and I think of how an individual would view themselves compared to others.
Compared to others. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you kind of add on that piece of who am I in what context, according to whom.
Right.
And then, as you said, compared to what? I've been thinking a lot recently about how our sense of self impacts our actions, our thoughts, our emotions, relationships, kind of everything.
For sure, everything.
Especially mental health and wellness. Mm-hmm. And it is a topic that we spend significant time as therapists talking about with people in the clinical setting. A huge part of our sense of self involves self-esteem. Mm-hmm. Listeners, you've all heard about self-esteem. It's a concept that references how worthy we feel we are and how much we value ourselves. It really guides our self-perception and becomes foundational to our personal opinion about and beliefs about ourselves. But we toss around the word self-esteem as we toss around lots of words, and you and I are word people.
Yes, we are.
Sometimes I wonder if we really sit back and wonder what it means.
I think people rarely do that.
And what it means to us, and how we absorb or internalize that word that we're saying. How often are we all intentionally considering how we perceive ourselves, how much worth we have, how valuable we believe ourselves to be, and this is the kicker. How honest are we about those questions?
Which is such a key piece.
How honest are we with ourselves? They can be painful to sit with because the reality might be for some that self-esteem is a struggle. You all know on the show, we dive straight into real topics that feel vulnerable because processing them matters. So today, I want us to explore self-esteem together, to think through where it comes from, how it fluctuates, what impacts it, how to know if we have a healthy self-esteem. Because I think we might be saying that and perhaps we don't. And maybe most importantly, how to nurture self-esteem. If you have wondered ever, how can I cultivate self-esteem? We are going to offer you some things to try today. But Tara, when we're just starting with self-esteem, why do you think self-esteem is important?
Oh my goodness, because I think, like I said, one of my first sentences, I think it is so powerful and has such a tremendous impact on all facets of your life. And a key to that, you mentioned in the last paragraph, was I think for someone to go, why do I feel this way? And start to dive into it a little, well, then they're sitting in discomfort. And then I think the fear is, well, then what do I do with that discomfort, right? So I'd rather just not. I see it as, well, this is how I view myself, or this is how I view myself compared to others. But if we really look at how it impacts our ability to communicate, our ability to whether or not to have coping skills, it really does have an impact on every facet, but so important because it does impact our mental wellness and mental health. Around every facet, like I said, relationships, communication, boundaries, all the things.
Yeah, it seems like it's this center spoke of a wheel. I get that image as you're talking and in my mind that it would inform how we show up in all of those moments because our belief and sense of self would say to us, well, who am I in every moment that I'm in? And if self-esteem is core to who we are, and as we just said, who we believe ourselves to be, and how worthy we are to be that thing or those things, that's going to impact how we are in the moments that we have, small and large.
For sure. And don't you think, too, your point of it kind of controls or regulates when you said about the truth.
Yeah, we're going to get to it all.
Is it the truth?
Yes, we're going to get to it all. We're going to take a short commercial break. Stay tuned for the rest of Feels Out Loud. We'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I'm Tara Martini, along with Becky McNatten. Let's dive right back into our discussion on self-esteem.
Yeah, we're talking all things self-esteem today. Tara, how do you think we develop self-esteem?
Such a good question. And I think so much of it is by things that control us around us.
Okay.
I think we develop self-esteem depending on the environment we live in, the support we receive. I don't know how much of it is really us individually establishing it on our own and being purposeful in it.
Okay.
I get a sense that it's more out of our control.
Okay. So these external inputs, you have me wondering, and listeners, maybe ponder this question yourself today. How do we develop self-esteem? How did you develop self-esteem? I think sometimes it's what's modeled for us. Mm-hmm. So how do we see other people living who they believe themselves to be? Definitely messaging we receive about us from other people.
Well, and our early, if you look at it from an attachment standpoint, our early experiences with that sense of self and safety and support and growth, that I think, oh my gosh, if it is that, we obviously have a control to a certain degree, but so much of it is what's around us and what we're receiving from those things.
Yeah. So on that, in terms of those inputs, those things around us, what do you think affects or influences it?
I think so much about, I think family is a tremendous impact, or wherever you grew up, right? Who had the most influence on you, parents or guardians. I also think society, and then within that, to a smaller degree, your social, being and your peers and things like that. But so much of it, I think, is a societal thing. And how it impacts self-esteem, I think, has changed over the years, right? When you and I grew up, we didn't have social media or that facet impacting us. We had greater impact from other things. And now people growing up in the age of social media, I think that's a huge influencer in the way of how we view ourselves compared to others, or how we view ourselves in the world.
Yeah. And I would add one thing that I think affects or influences it is how are the things that we identified as maybe successes. You and I did a show about celebration of ourselves a few weeks ago. How did that happen? And how were those noticed or not noticed? Because I do think that those things do affect us in how we build it, nurture it, or not. Mm-hmm. How has self-esteem changed for you over time?
Well, I think, and that is such a good question as far as it made me reflect so much on, like, how has it?
Yeah.
Right? And it's one of those, this would be important for everybody who's listening. How has that changed for you over the years? I think when I was younger, I very clearly remember issues with self-esteem, like elementary and middle school. Because I think in my younger version of myself, self-esteem was really wrapped up in the external, how people see me physically and how I look compared to others. And then as I have gotten older and hopefully wiser and realized that that is not just what self-esteem is focused on, it is you as a human and your abilities and capacities to do things. Mm-hmm. And that is now, when I think of self-esteem, I think it from that internal lens of who am I, not how do I look.
Yes. Or how am I?
Yes.
How am I?
Yes.
Over the months that we've been doing the show, we have heard from listeners about self-esteem. And recently, one of our listeners highlighted this very shift around perception of self over time. So exactly what you're just talking about. She says, I am a woman in my mid-30s, and I'm realizing that I have likely struggled with self-esteem issues my entire life. If you would have asked me as a teen or 20-something, though, I would have told you I had a very healthy self-esteem. I was confident, I had friends, I was involved in things, I had a good job as an adult, and I've always been very independent. But I'm beginning to see now that maybe my strong self-esteem or high self-confidence was me doing whatever I was told to do. I think I maybe thought my worth or value came from compliance with requests, being responsible and following through, and making other people happy. I don't think I tested any boundaries, and as a person in my 30s, I am not sure if I believe I have value outside of what I do for other people.
Wow.
And this is a poignant statement to me because not only can self-esteem fluctuate across our life, as you mentioned, but our very perspective of what is healthy and not
Yes.
can change too. This listener says it. Sometimes in the moment, we can see things one way and then later, in a totally different moment, have a different view on the same thing. And this listener had me thinking about times in my own life where I would have said I was so confident or had a healthy sense of self, but looking at it now, I was a people pleaser and an absolute perfectionist. I remember reading something, and I'm saying this and I'm going to smile about it because it is kind of funny. I remember reading something in college about how people who struggle with anxiety often also have self-esteem issues. It was for a college class.
Yep.
And as someone who thought that perhaps I leaned toward the anxious side of things, rather than say to myself, wow, okay, I lean toward the anxious side of things, I wonder how self-esteem might be an issue for me. I instead said, well, I guess I don't have anxiety at all because I have a great self-esteem.
Wow.
Which is probably a bit defended.
Yeah.
Now that I consider it. So I appreciate the perspective from this person who shared their experience over time.
Right.
And how their past self might have answered a question very differently than their current self because they're looking at those experiences through a different lens.
Absolutely. And how much does that change as a young adult to where we are now? It is. And something that stood out to me the most, which was a very poignant statement that you said as well, is when this person said, I'm not sure if I believe I have value outside of what I do for other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it hit me to my core.
Yeah.
And I all of a sudden went from the same thing of how can you in one moment think one thing and then so quickly go to something else because it made me reflect on my self-esteem. And then it made me go, wait, that is how I view myself as far as it is what I can do for others. And do I have value outside of that?
Yeah.
Where my perception just completely shifted by one thing that was said, which is remarkable, the power of words.
Power of words. We have some other responses from people we've gotten in the past around self-esteem.
Yep.
Will you share them?
I would love to. Again, these are responses we've gotten from listeners. I don't think I have a self-esteem. I compare myself to people constantly. It seems like the world around me has it all together, and I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like that's our lived experience every day. If anyone asked me to say something nice about myself, I would have no clue what to say. Self-esteem seems to fluctuate for me, and I'm not sure if that is normal. And then lastly, I don't want to ever come across as arrogant, so I don't talk about myself. But I think my fear of being arrogant caused me to not build my self-esteem. I'm so worried about what other people might think about me and focused on that I never developed a true perception of myself outside of what others think.
Wow. I'm so grateful for people sharing their thoughts with us about this. So profound.
So
in the
profound.
statements.
Yep.
What does it make you think about?
Oh my goodness. Well, first it made me think of, it really struck me with the comment about, I don't think I have a self-esteem. And I think there's so many ways that you could view that.
Sure.
And so to me, it started me thinking, okay, there is actually an argument out in the world, in the educated world, on there is no self-esteem. There is no true sense of self-esteem. So I looked at, okay, it got me thinking. Now I'm on this path of exploring the no self-esteem argument. And here are 3 reasons why they give it is that it's not a real thing, in that it's based on judgment. They argue that self-esteem is often based on how we behave or perform. When we succeed, it goes up. When we fail, it crashes, making it really, quote unquote, a sandcastle that's difficult to maintain.
Got it.
So to me, what that says is it can exist. I may have it, but it's such a fluid, always changing thing that it's almost like an abstract concept rather than something you could legitimately work on. Or it's not real. Some modern critics argue that self-esteem is not a tangible, measurable concept to chase, suggesting that pursuing it is a myth. I see where they're coming from, but you know what? I also think, and this is the therapeutic perspective, I think we both agree on, is, oh my goodness, things can be abstract and things cannot be tangible, but we can still have growth and have them be something that we can see and make progress toward. And so to me, that is what stood out so much, is just that idea of, I conclude by saying it's abstract, but oh my goodness, I think we can work on it. And later in the show, in the next episode, we're going to look at ways that we really can work to improve our self-esteem.
Yeah, it makes me think about that whole list. Perhaps we aren't taught about self-esteem beyond some basics. And how many of us are walking around with significant incongruence between how the world sees us and how we see ourselves.
Amen.
And for those of you who might be wondering, if you struggle with self-esteem, consider these examples of how self-esteem issues might show up. Hating yourself, feeling angry or frustrated about who you are, not only what you do, downplaying yourself to those around you, a high focus on being perfect and setting impossible standards to avoid criticism, hating your body, feeling worthless, feeling anxious or fearful on a regular basis, trying to be a people pleaser, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, blaming yourself unfairly, worrying about being unable to do things, chronic self-criticism and negative self-talk, using high achievements or an overconfident persona to hide insecurity and fear, maybe neglecting self-needs to satisfy other people. Self-esteem issues can show up like hyper-independence, which would involve an inability to trust others or ask for help, social withdrawal and avoiding social circumstances with other people, or projecting an image of superiority to mask feeling inferior. What do you think about the list?
As a therapist, every item that you stated, I thought, okay, like feeling anxious or fearful on a regular basis, people see that as a sign of anxiety. And what I think is fascinating is, I think if you talk to the average person and said, well, if a symptom is feeling anxious or fearful on a regular basis, someone would go, oh, well, you have anxiety. I don't know if they would attach it to self-esteem. So there's all these traits you've just identified: social withdrawal and avoiding social circumstances. So then my head, I'm like, social anxiety or depression, isolating oneself. Again, I don't think a lot of people would go, oh, and that's connected to self-esteem.
Yeah.
So I think this list is just
That's
highlighting
a really good point.
Like the connection.
Yeah. And what you're saying is some of the things that we might notice are anxiety, our depression, our mood fluctuation, that asking ourselves perhaps something underneath it.
Yes.
Might be our belief about us.
And how many times have we not done that? How many times have we talked about, if you struggle with depression, you're focused on the symptoms and you're focused on the word of the diagnosis of depression, but how many are going deeper, and what does this say about who I am as a human and how I value myself or don't value myself? It's all of them just make you think.
They absolutely make you think. You and I came up with a short self-esteem quiz.
Oh, yes.
That our listeners can take right now to learn more about self-esteem in their own lives. As I read these statements, I want you all to think about this on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being almost never and 5 being most of the time. So this sort of Likert scale, everyone. And rate each statement for yourself. This is 10 statements. And keep in mind the 1 to 5 scale as I'm reading them. So number 1, I get angry at myself if I make a small mistake. Almost never. 5 is most of the time. 2, I ask other people what I should do or go along with others instead of making my own decisions. 3, I have a tough time accepting compliments or positive statements from other people. 4, I don't feel like I'm good enough. Remember, 1 to 5. 5, I blame myself frequently when things go wrong. 6, I say negative things about myself, either to other people or to yourself. 7, when I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see. 8, I struggle with identifying what I'm good at. 9, guilt is an emotion I experience often. And 10, I have difficulty identifying and responding to my own needs. So, as these statements were read, consider where on the scale of 1 to 5 you would rate it. If your responses were 4s and 5s, self-esteem might be an issue to process through. And if many of them were 4s and 5s. And we would invite you to really think about each of the statements and what they mean to you. Are they rooted in a belief or a pattern? How do you notice this? Do they cause issues in areas of your life? Thoughts on the quiz, Tara?
Well, to touch on what you just ended with, are they rooted in a belief or pattern, and do they cause issues in other areas of your life? The pattern, to me, my thought was, how much of these statements, the 10 statements, are grounded in others making you feel that way or outside factors making you feel that way?
Good point.
Versus you coming to that conclusion on your own. I think we have learned as therapists and just as humans is that it's almost impossible to not be impacted by external things.
Completely. Yes.
And so as you're saying this list, I'm going through, I'm scoring myself. I'm saying, wow, I can see a lot of these statements being true, but I don't think anyone, including the viewers, would go, oh, well, I consciously didn't work on that because that's not important to me. I guarantee it's not that I wasn't trying, it's that I was so deeply impacted by another facet or external factor that impacted that. Because no one would choose to, blame myself frequently when things go wrong or say negative things about myself. And so it's really being aware of the environment in which you grew up in or are currently in.
Yeah, well, you have me thinking through that maybe our listeners could go back, reread them, even write the statements down. And if you answered 4s or 5s on them, think about, where did that come from in my life? When you and I were just talking about the question a few minutes ago, how does self-esteem get created? And what affects and impacts it? One could look at those statements like you're saying and start to say, well, what are the things that influenced me saying most of the time?
Yes.
For that? Where did I learn that from? Or how was that modeled for me? Do I actually even believe it?
Right.
I find myself maybe doing it, but do I believe those things? If, for instance, I say negative things about myself, do you believe the things that you're saying, or was it modeled for you that someone in your life said negative things about themselves, and there's a patterning? And I'm thinking through, perhaps people could look at, has this been a pattern in my life? Are there times where I haven't felt these ways, or I haven't done these things? What was going on then, and how has this fluctuated and changed?
Well, and as you're talking, I am pulling out certain things that you're saying, and I was like, wow, that really matches. It's that idea of in what context are you answering these quiz questions today? For example,
Sure.
Are you going through a period of transition or unrest in your life?
Yes.
And I've talked about this before, my self-esteem or my value as a former teacher, I had a very strong sense of self and self-esteem as a teacher because I did it forever. I knew I was good at it. If I had taken this quiz 10 years ago, it would be different than now, where I've chosen a new career path where I'm still learning every single day. And I don't have that mentality of, I know I'm good and I know it's just not there yet. So my answers are very different today than they would have been 10 years ago. So kind of think to yourself, is my current situation impacting the answers that I'm getting?
I think that's a very good point. I think that's a really good point. Helps us put it in perspective or give context to it.
Yep.
Self-esteem issues is not a mental health diagnosis.
Correct.
But it absolutely affects mental wellness. And we've talked about that already through the show.
Right.
We don't want to be performative here and say, well, if you struggle with self-esteem, go love yourself. Go be kind to you.
Gross.
If it were that easy, we would all do it.
Exactly. And we wouldn't struggle in the arena of self-esteem.
Yes. We don't simply tell ourselves something and then go believe it or know it.
Right.
And if self-esteem is an issue or a struggle, your brain, everyone, is going to be way more focused on processing things from a deficit spot because it has practice. Mm-hmm. That's what it's been doing. And it's going to say, this is what we do.
Right.
From a lens of not being good enough and not having worth. Tara, you and I get asked frequently, okay, well then what do I do?
Right.
What do I do? How do I nurture self-esteem and how do I grow it and sustain it? And where do I even start? To everyone asking this out there, we hear you. Mm-hmm. We hear you. We need to respond to self-esteem issues with self-love. And there are things that you can do, and we're going to go over some right now. The first one, develop a relationship with yourself and get to know you truly.
Such an important one.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're good at or how to assert yourself, that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. Grace for this. Rather than judge you about your self-esteem, think of yourself as someone you are meeting and learning about. Someone new. Consider this a new relationship that you're building and cultivating. Nurturing self-esteem first starts with knowing yourself. If this feels like a struggle, think about a person you know right now that you like. When you first met them, what did you do? And how did you get to know them better? What actions did you take? Perhaps you spent some time together, you asked some questions, shared some statements that were nice. Listeners, you can take those same questions you would ask someone else and start asking them toward you to find out about you.
Such a good strategy.
Things like, what do you enjoy? What makes you happy? Mm-hmm. Do you have a hobby? What are some of your favorite things? What is the best time of day for you? You get what I'm saying, everybody. You get to know you and spend significant time doing this. This takes a long time. But the process is twofold. First, it starts to tell you you can invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. And second, and maybe most importantly, it tells you from the beginning that you are worth knowing.
Yes. And I love that last statement. You are worth knowing. Mm-hmm. So number 2 is, then after you've done that, think of a person who is supportive of you in your life right now. Ask them to serve as your accountability partner as you develop a stronger relationship with you.
Mm-hmm. Very good point.
You don't need to ask them to tell you 1,000 nice things or highlight how wonderful you are, because that might be overwhelming. And the answer to self-esteem issues is not just simple reassurance from others. That's not going to break that pattern. If we don't believe in ourselves, we most certainly will not believe it if someone else says it.
Right.
So building self-esteem doesn't lie in hearing from people what we're good at or what makes us amazing. Building self-esteem means we are focused on shifting the conversation we have with ourselves about ourselves. Mm-hmm. It starts with self.
Such a good point. Such a good point. So many things you said there that highlight this idea of often we would seek reassurance because it might feel like it fills the bucket in the moment. But the root of self-esteem is literally self.
Right.
Attuning to needs. So if you want to nurture self-esteem, as you develop a relationship with you, think about what your basic needs are. We're being serious here around thinking about basic needs. These can be very basic. When do you like to get ready for bed? What do you like to wear? What do you enjoy eating? And then, everyone, do these things. Mm-hmm. And then notice that you're doing them. These are everyday ways to show ourselves kindness. And I mean that attuning to basic needs is kind. And then telling ourselves we are worthy of that kindness. In addition, attuning to needs can be practicing also saying no to other people and telling yourself you're doing this to nurture self-esteem. So recognizing a limitation or a thing that we need to not do to be kind to ourselves and then say I'm doing this actively to promote my self-esteem.
Which is so huge because it's that piece of by saying no to others, you are saying to yourself, I value myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Also, notice the role, negative self-talk in your life. A lot of us are guilty of this. And if you can challenge those negative statements with something neutral or positive. Mm-hmm. And again, it doesn't have to be the most positive statement like, I am the number one mom of all time and everyone's below me. More neutral, okay? More simply positive. Consider an affirmation journal where you can only write something you accomplished that day.
Ooh, I like that.
And how wonderful would that be if we did that? There's gratitude journals, write your gratitude for the day. But what about something around self-esteem on identifying what did you accomplish? Think small and basic on this. But leave this journal for those moments where you are celebrating your successes.
Yeah, and I would think that this could also be a note section on a phone, or it wouldn't even need to be a journal that we actively are writing in. But I love that you say that, Tara, because if what we're talking about is noticing the role of negative self-talk, we let that be.
Yes.
But we focus also on improving or increasing positive self-talk.
Yes.
So we maybe don't down ourselves for the negative self-talk, but we nurture this thing over here.
Right.
Try and notice when you compare yourselves to others. And Tara mentioned comparison in the show already. And pay attention. This is the important part, everybody, to the self-messages you send as a result of the comparison. Anytime you recognize that you are comparing yourself to others, take a deep breath and then say, differences exist. I choose self-love right now. Or another statement that might resonate with you, but the idea that not only is the comparison the problem, what we tell ourselves about the comparison is the issue. And that, I think, is the impact of self-esteem.
For sure. Now think about times when you felt confident. And some of you say, I don't know. You can take the time. We know it's there. When you did feel confident, what were you doing?
Yeah.
And what did you notice in yourself that made you realize this was confidence?
I love that.
Who were you with? And we've talked about that, how outside factors impact. And as you answer these questions, think through how you can bring that into your life more.
Yeah. And you're highlighting something that, let's go daily life here.
Yeah.
We're not saying where you won an award or,
Correct.
although it could be that.
Yes.
That you're saying, think about even your last couple of days. What's a moment, or the last week, what's a moment that seemed like confidence? And then really think about, who was there? What was I doing? What was going on around me? Who were the players present? And think about how you could bring that into your life more. I love that. Accept a compliment when it comes. Okay.
We're real good at that.
I know. We're both laughing as I say this out loud. This is hard.
It is.
But I'm saying, don't downplay it.
For sure.
Don't discard it. Do not sarcasm it away. Take it as truth. And maybe you don't even fully agree with it. But here's the reality about truths. There can be more than one.
Yes.
So let this be the truth for the person who shared it. Let that be their truth. If they gave you a compliment, let your truth not be the only truth. And let yourself absorb the message they're sending and tell yourself you are choosing something new in your life. It's kind of this curious nature about, well, maybe the way that I see it, if I don't agree with a compliment even, isn't the only way to look at this.
Well, and you bring up such a good point in that is that person's truth. Allow them to think that. That is their truth. You don't have to agree with it, but just the fact of allowing them is huge.
And we both laugh because this is a challenging thing. I think lots of us, it's what's modeled for us. We see other people receiving compliments with an instantaneous downplay of the compliment.
Yep.
And I think we learn to do that for ourselves. It feels awkward sometimes.
I was just going to say awkward.
It feels a little strange. It feels like limelight. And if someone struggles with self-esteem, this would be a thing that they probably would feel deeply uncomfortable with.
Well, that they want to fight against it.
Yes, that idea of focus, someone's noticing me. Maybe I'm not even owed taking up space. And so all of a sudden someone's giving you a compliment. We're not minimizing how hard this might be, but if you actively tell yourself, I'm trying something new in life, let it sink in.
Yes. And ask yourself, what am I passionate about? And then make a plan for doing this thing. Self-esteem comes from believing that we have value and worth. Showing ourselves through our actions of honoring it is what helps us begin to believe in our worth. And we all have that thing we're passionate about. How easy or the likelihood is increased with that sense of I'm doing what I'm passionate about is going to increase your sense of self and worth. You know you're doing something you're good at, that you love and are passionate about, and you believe fully.
Yeah. And you have me thinking about, as you said that, that even the practice of thinking about what you're passionate about gets at, well, what am I investing in?
Right.
It might help us when you are saying self-esteem is who we believe ourselves to be. That is a little bit what's morphed for you in your own life. It used to be how I am,
right,
and now it is who I am. Yeah. That I think even this personal exploration of what am I passionate about,
for sure,
starts to be some cool questions in then what do I nurture around who I believe myself to be.
Yep. And what a part of myself do I need to nurture?
Yeah, yeah. And then that honors us.
Yeah.
Doing things that we're passionate about is a way of honoring us. Lastly, create a declaration. Some people might say mantra, but I love the idea of declaring things for ourselves. It's powerful and empowering. So think of a need you have. Everybody, think of a need you have. Something you want most for yourself right now, or something that you would love someone to say to you. This is a life concept, not a thing. Use first-person language like I, and then create a short statement about it. And if you have trouble with this, start with the words I am. For example, your declaration could be, I am worthy of joy, or I will see good in me, or I matter, something short. And commit to telling this to yourself at least once a day. Commit to telling yourself this at least once a day.
So huge.
What do you think about the list,
Oh my
Tara?
gosh. I think we all need to get started on that list. And I think by doing these things, it is, and we talk about this in therapy about like things turning into a habit, right? And they're very hard to break. And it's that idea of unlearning things that you taught yourself or someone else instilled in you over time. Doing these things is slowly going to pick at where I'm learning now to love myself. Where before it was, whether it was external, internal, I don't love myself.
Yeah.
So by doing these things, and we say this all the time, you do it X amount of times, it does turn into a habit. Doing these things, and then you'll learn, like for the last one, this declaration, saying it every day. It's what they talk about affirmations all the time. It's effective. You do it every single day.
Yeah.
And you yourself will start to believe it. And I think with all of these things, the more you're engaged in doing this, the more you're going to start to believe it. And the changes you'll see then in your self-esteem will be profound.
That's such an excellent point that we do believe what we say if we say it enough.
Yep.
And there might be people out there who are sitting with, I can't possibly see that day. Right. I can't possibly see that day. Just so if I start being curious with me and developing a relationship, I'll feel different about me. The answer is yes, actually. And we have lots of data points in our lives if you look back and think about something you saw from one view. And you mentioned this even about your own self-esteem, or the listener mentioned this about their own self-esteem. They thought of it one way. Time passed, maybe without even intentional investments in self-esteem.
Right.
And they think about it differently. They perceive it differently. So if there's a person out there right now who's saying to themselves, I can't possibly see, Tara, how what you're saying, if I just commit to an affirmation, that I will believe that. There is a huge power in words, though.
Yes.
And you and I are big believers in, and I love that you also said something that was really beautiful. It isn't only one thing. We gave a list of 9 things. It isn't only one. And you said the words kind of chisel away.
Just take it bit by bit.
Yeah, that we're not saying that overnight this will be different. And we're not even saying that any one of the things on the list of 9 are going to be the thing.
Right.
It is the combo of saying, I'm committing to something different. I'm committing to something different. I'm nurturing myself.
And that's a form of self-love by saying, I'm committing to this.
Yes. So much to think about here. Right now, we're going to head to a commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to talk through listener questions. Feels Out Loud will process your thoughts in just a moment.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud. And this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly. Or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. Of course, don't forget to follow us on social media as well. We really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
Yeah, we do, for sure. And thank you to the people who sent in questions and thoughts about self-esteem. One person said to us, self-esteem seems to focus on being aware of our strengths. And I definitely hear that.
Yep.
Do you have thoughts about how I could identify these for myself? I honestly do not think I know what I'm good at. And the reflection in that is very powerful. And I think the recognition of, okay, well, if I want to build on my strengths and gifts and talents, how do I figure out what they are?
Right.
I don't know. So what would you say, Tara?
I think I'm such a, here, do this tangible thing.
Yes. Strategies.
Yes. The moment we read this question, my thought was, so then take out a piece of paper and start with the question, what compliments have I received in the past?
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Because you may not agree with them, but you're going to hear what others have said are your strengths, which is a starting point for, hey, I'm aware of my strengths. But start with others. What have they complimented you on? What praise have you received in work or at home or with family or friends? And if you can start there and then you read the list that you just wrote, you may find there is some truth that you're willing to realize when you read the statements.
That's a really good point. My thought was super similar to yours on think about what do you get positive feedback on? And so that could be a compliment. The challenge then is what was someone referencing when they gave the compliment or positive feedback? So if they say, I love the brownies you made. Great brownies. Then, so that would be the positive feedback. What was the feedback about? The feedback was about your baking. And so exactly to your point, what are other people telling you and what are they noticing? And I think if you aren't aware of what those are, and maybe if my thought was, if you can't think about what have I gotten positive feedback on, make an experiment.
You love experiments.
I do. So for the next week, until our next show, listener, seek to absorb the times that somebody does give you positive feedback. It does happen. And so if thinking in the past is too much of a challenge, and you're just like, it hasn't happened, tell yourself then, okay, I'm committing to this. But you have to be rooted in the idea of I'm committing to something different in my life. I want to know what my skills and strengths are. So in the week ahead, every day, notice them.
Yes.
What are people giving you positive feedback on? And I love your idea of maybe even at night, someone could say, what compliments did I receive today?
And that's going to help you remember if you're that type that you get in a headspace where you're like, I don't know.
And then we might get to a spot where we can say, okay, I do see that. What's the concept that they're actually giving me feedback about? And how can I honor that?
I think that's key, is the second step of what trait were they actually referring to in the brownie compliment? And then how do I honor that and how do I foster that? So important.
Because one of the ways that you would nurture self-esteem then, taking that forward, is saying, I'm going to go do that more. Maybe going to bake more. And maybe going to share that baking more. Wow, we're at the end of our show already for today.
Goodness.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, I cannot.
Thank you for listening, everyone, this morning. Join us next week we're going to keep continuing our discussion about self-esteem. And in the week ahead, everybody, be kind to yourself. Remember, connection fosters wellness. And your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.